Hi everybody, and welcome to Bill's Hobby Table. This is going to be a regular thing for my Kings of War army. I'm just kind of going through and doing some video about the modeling and work I'm doing on my Undead army. And I'm also in the process of working on a Trident Realms army as well. But right now, mostly we're just going to talk about my Undead. This is my first Mantic army that I'm doing at least 90 to 99% Mantic models. I'm throwing in a couple of Reaper models to kind of fill in holes, but that's just because there are certain units like the Lycanus that don't actually have a Mantic unit yet, or a model that's produced for it. So I'm just kind of filling in holes there, but 99% of this army is going to be Mantic because I really enjoy Kings of War, and I'm a Pathfinder now, so I'm going to be doing tournament organizing for them, and also just playing Kings of War pretty much exclusively, since that's what I have time to do in my spare time. And so yeah. Anyway, here's the first unit that I worked on was the Undead Legion, and this is actually I got some MDF trays and MDF unit trays, and then the actual, you know, bases for them. And it's a combination. The actual the unit tray itself to encompass everything was purchased from Tectonic Studios, but then I also got some of the bases from Ironheart Artisans. For whatever reason, Ironheart Artisans didn't make a Legion-sized tray, so I had to get that from Tectonic Studios. And I built this unit, as you can see, with the diorama very much in mind. I got these little gravestones from a company. I'm trying to remember the name of it off the top of my head. It starts with an R, but yeah, they were on eBay. They were they're a European company that made them, and they came on sprues. But the main thing was that shipping over to the United States wasn't very good if you were going to buy them that route. So I found them on eBay, and a seller had a kit of them, and I picked them up for a reasonable price. I think it was like 15 or 16 bucks for all the sprues shipped. And then all of the zombies here are Mantic zombies, and I airbrushed them in 3 different colors. I went with a dark green, the lighter green is actually a Vallejo. I think it's like Dead Flesh is the name of it. And then I went with like a magic purple for the third color, because I wanted to kind of make them multicolored and different styles here, just to kind of break them up and give them that character and make them look good. I went over their clothes with some grays and browns and stuff, and then I washed them, and I gave them some of the blood. I believe that is actually that GW Blood for the Blood God is what that is called. It's a really great effects paint, and I'm doing that on most of my army to kind of give it that, hey, we're eating we're eating our enemies here. So they look a little gory, but I didn't want to go overboard to where it was like spilling everywhere, just kind of on their hands and face, and just not so much that it was like spilling blood everywhere. I think that the gravestones turned out great. I really like how I did this, because I've got the horde here, and then I've got 2 troops behind it. It's kind of a modular way to go. And that way I can actually take these 2 troops and turn them into a regiment if I want to. So then I have all the options for a zombie unit. I can take a regiment, a horde, or a legion without any problems. I also plan on taking the rest of my zombies, which are sitting back here in a pile on my desk, and just individually basing some of those. And you can kind of see how these originated, and it was just kind of going over them with the airbrush. And I mean, even this, it doesn't look like I did that great of job spraying some of these, but some of these turned out better than others. Yeah, just kind of covered them, and then kind of got the little details, and then but also just kind of with the basing, the style that I went with for this, it was just spraying them with a really dark gray, and then spraying them brown, and then kind of getting little patches of sand, and then putting some green flock on top of that, and it really makes the entire base look great. I'm very happy with it anyway. So that's my zombie unit that I'm working on. The next unit I started working on were my werewolves. They're very simple. I'm trying to get this army done by Adepticon, and I don't get a ton of time to work on painting, but I kind of wanted to just, get as much done as I could and still make it look good and uniform. These guys are a very similar. I just kind of did a gray, and then the similar basing to the other unit. I'm not done with the basing. I'm going to put some rocks in there and stuff. The great thing about these guys is if I ever start a Forces of Nature army, I just wanted to make sure that I could also use these as lichens if I wanted to. Even though, they're an undead unit, they could be used for both armies. And then over here, this is the one single Reaper model in my army. It's actually a undead. He's like an undead werewolf, some kind of rotting flesh. You can even see kind of his rib cage there, and kind of his guts hanging out. It's pretty gross, but I found this one online, and I ordered him just because I think he'd be a really good Lycanus. I'm also currently in the stages of, as you can see, it's going to be purple. Is going to be a theme with my units. I'm not totally sold on doing this with the wraiths. I might actually go over them with like a white kind of spray, and then do kind of a mystic or magical wash over them. I'm not sure yet, but I'm kind of in process with those guys. Then when I bought the Mantic box set, I actually bought the Bloodmire Legion box set, which was a really awesome value at the time. It was something like $179.99, and you got an entire army of undead, and it came with Morgoth the Faceless, and then I can't remember her name. It's, yeah, you guys will all correct me, but it's the chick. But she is going to be a necromancer in the army, just because the characters are pretty expensive. He'll probably end up being either a vampire lord or another necromancer. I haven't decided if I'm going to get a separate model for a vampire lord. I probably will, but I'm going to model him up anyway and paint him up. Those are kind of in process. As you can see, I'm kind of getting things based here. Another unit that I'm working on in my army, I'm huge on vampires. I just love the vampire models. Excuse my mess over here. I mean, you can see kind of what I'm working on there. We'll get to that next, but my little spray booth in my basement. But these guys are actually Basilean models. And what I did was I actually was trying to be thrifty here, because while the Mantic Soul Reaver models are pretty cool, I actually think they would probably be pretty expensive to get a full unit of them. And also, I'm not into metal that much. While I did order the new Undead Zombie Trolls for the army, I was bummed out to hear that they weren't going to be Rustic, because I'm actually a huge fan of Rustic. I know a lot of people are actually not fans of Rustic, and they would have rather had the metals. But I personally really like the Rustic, and the way that you can kind of mold it and reform it with boiling water, and then also the fact that it's not super heavy. And this unit right here, I didn't want it to be a super heavy unit that was just going to, be a problem. So what I did was, actually, here's another reason why this is going to be 90% rather than 100% Mantic, is because these are actually vampire heads from a company called Puppets War. And not all of them are. I left some of them with their knight helms on, or their swordman helms on, but you can kind of see that there's some vampire heads mixed in there, and those are the vampire heads from Puppets War, and I threw those on top of these Basilean swordsmen, and now they're going to become my Soul Reavers. So that's another really fun customization I'm doing for this army. So there you go for that. I'll throw that back over here. I've still got in the bag a whole bunch of actually the Basilean cavalry. Another item that I am working on is some trolls. These are actually going to end up being kind of dual purpose trolls. I'm going to paint them up kind of in a darkish scheme so they look really evil. And they're going to kind of go as undead trolls in my undead army. But they're also going to be trolls for my Varangur army eventually, because I know that you can take trolls with them. And I just really like the models. I really like these ones because they're rustic. I know that the new undead zombie trolls that are coming out, which I'm also getting 6 of those as well. So I can actually field 2 units of undead trolls, or the zombie trolls, in my undead list. But the reason that I got these was because there was a website, I think it was like RDG Gaming or something like that. They had a Cyber Monday sale where it was like 20% off, and I ended up getting 2 units of these guys for a really good price. So I ended up purchasing these online and getting them, and now I can, when my actual undead zombie trolls get here, because I pre-ordered them and they hadn't arrived yet, but I'm really hoping that my Uncharted Empires book, my zombie trolls, and I actually ordered the new elf dragon as well. So in a future episode, I can't wait to get that, because I'm going to kind of modify that into a vampire dragon for my undead army. But anyway, these guys are next on the list to get a spray coat, and then we're going to start painting them up too. So this is all preparation for Adepticon, because I will be at Adepticon. I'm also using this army as kind of a display army for people when I run my games on Tuesday nights here in Omaha at the game shop, so that people can see what the Mantic models look like, so they can go get their own and make their own great armies with them. I'm also getting this ready as a display army and a possible ringer army for our Warhammer Refugees tournament, which is going to be in Omaha, Nebraska at Brookstone on January 9th. The Outlanders Gaming Guild, which is the club that I'm a part of in Omaha, we have quite a few tournaments coming up this year. If you listen to the Countercharge podcast at all, I just got done doing a interview with Rob there on the Countercharge podcast, and he had a lot of time there to let me kind of explain all of what's going on here in Omaha, and you should give that a listen for sure, because we got the Warhammer Refugees tournament, and then we're going to have the March Hare, and then we're going to have the Bug Eater GT, which Tim Royers runs every year, which is going to be really great. This is kind of my next step. I know it's kind of a cluster over here, but I'm working on my skeleton spearmen. I really want to incorporate a couple of regiments of skeleton spearmen in my army, just as kind of bait units. They're only 105 points or so, I think, or 110. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I feel like they're a really good unit with a fearless 16 nerve. 4-up armor or 4-up defense isn't really that great, I know, but they seem to be able to stick around pretty well, and then with Phalanx, they're not afraid of units with Thunderous Charge. So I kind of feel like they'd be a great unit to just put out there for enemies to charge, and then I can countercharge with my more powerful units. So I'm going to do at least 2 of those. My box set came with 40 of these skeletons, and I'm going to actually multi-base some of them. I'm going to be clipping off the bases on here, kind of the same way I did with the zombies on my. If you look over here, my zombies, I actually clipped all the bases off of them so that I could mount them directly to the MDF, and that's going to be the same plan that I do with these skeletons. And then I'm going to put 2 units of them on these MDF trays, or the bases, so that way I'll have enough just on bases for a regiment if I want. And then the rest of them I'm actually going to single base, so that way if I ever want to use them in like Dungeon Saga or something, I'll be able to. Also because I wanted to kind of model up a bunch of little unit fillers with the rest of these gravestones. Oh, there went one of them. But the plan is, and I'm kind of in process here of flocking the bases, and then I'm gonna go over it with another base coat on the base there, probably a dark brown. But the plan is to just kind of mix in skeletons with gravestones and then put them in the trays, so that way you have the 50%, or I'm actually probably going to do about 60% of skeleton spearmen and then mix in the gravestones to kind of fill out the units. So that's kind of what I've got going on right now. I'm also working on slowly my Varangur over here. They're actually the Avatars of War, Nurgle looking guys. They're in process. I'm always putting those together. I'm also working on, oh man, so much stuff. I have some elves that are actually my Warhammer Wood Elves, and then I have my Warhammer Dwarves, but those are kind of on hold because I really want to get this Undead finished and make them all look good and make everything look somewhat like this, hopefully. The plan is to get the rest of the army done by Adepticon, 2,500 points, but we will see. I've also got a Trident Realms army coming in the mail. I ordered several different pieces. I got some pencil sharpener cannons that I ordered, which is kind of funny because they're actually just little pencil sharpeners, and I got 4 of them for 20 bucks. So $5 a cannon, that's not too bad. I'll put them on 50mm bases and put some other models on there with them. I got a bunch of fish people from Reaper. There are these, I think they're called Teak Warriors, T-I-I-K, and they look like little evil fish with, they look like deep sea fish, kind of. I got a bunch of plastic crabs and plastic toys from China that are being sent over. They're just kind of Oriental Trading Company style little toys that are like $2 a bag. So I'm going to try and repaint those and make them look good for Gigas and Thule and that sort of thing. The Thule I'm pretty excited about because they're half octopus, half human. So I do have some plastic octopi coming, and I plan on cutting the tops off of them and just making like little elf hooded guys that I'm going to paint their faces blue and have swords on them, and then their legs will just be octopus legs. So that'll be kind of fun to do. I'm really looking forward to the Thule. Even though they're not really the best unit in the game, they still have ensnare and they're cheap. So the modeling opportunity there, I'm like, I know I probably wouldn't usually take this unit, but I really want to because of how cool they are. Anyway, that's kind of my modeling basement anyway. My table's always going to be a mess in these videos, so you guys can just go ahead and make fun of that, because the rest of my house is relatively clean, but my office in the basement is very dirty. just because I'm constantly modeling and throwing crap everywhere. So anyway, thanks for listening and watching, and the next time we will have more for you, but this is kind of my hobby progress. Take care. Bye.